following NBC sports program is
Exciting Southeastern Conference football battle. College football today. Is an exclusive presentation of
The following program is a special presentation from Red 5478.
The Oklahoma Sooners, one of the old school blue bloods of college football. What started as a territorial college, half-assed pretending to be a college football team in a Dust Bowl, became one of the most iconic programs in the history of the sport. A symbol of excellence, dating back to the years of Bud Wilkerson, who brought Oklahoma national recognition with their first national championship in 1950, as well as 2 more titles during a 47-game winning streak from 1953 to 1957. A winning streak that has never come close to being replicated. Then you have the years of Barry Switzer. Over his 16-year tenure, he would also win 3 national titles, as well as countless Big 8 Conference and Orange Bowl championships in the 70s and 80s. Besides a brief period of mediocrity between Wilkerson and Switzer in the 1960s, Oklahoma was always one of the top teams in the country and ruled the Big 8 Conference with an iron fist. It was truly the golden age of Sooner football. And then everything went to hell in a handbasket. The Sooners, once college football's red ruby on the plains, are now nothing more than a dried bloodstain in the dirt. This past season was the epitome of what Oklahoma fans have gotten used to calling Sooner football, luring the fans in barely enough just to make them think the Sooners might finally win another national championship, only to kick them in the nuts harder than a donkey with a crack addiction. I never thought I would need to venture into the dust-covered brick shithouse of Gaylord Memorial Stadium and verbally tear it down, but not only is Oklahoma physically going to do that over the next couple of years, but they already started with the work they have put in over the last couple of decades. My friends, this is a tale that winds from the tail end of the Switzer years to the most embarrassing performance in the short history of the 12-team college football playoff, as well as a bunch of other nonsense and fuckery in between. Hitch your wagons and make a run for your spot on the couch, because today on Storytime with Red, we fully destroy the Oklahoma Sooners and expose their crimes against football. However, before we talk about Oklahoma, I gotta pay the bills real quick.
promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Shoo! By golly, we're rich, Cletus. I just want enough money to buy out Kalen DeBoer's contract. Now we can find a real head coach and bring the Tide back another national title.
Billy, how were you able to do that? Did you rob another bank?
No, Cletus, you inbred moron. I've never committed a robbery in my life. At least they can't prove I did.
Oh, okay. How did you do it?
I did it thanks to the sponsor of this video, Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 sport app, and it's so easy to use, even you can use it, Cletus. You can not only pick who will win and lose games, but also stats for individual players. Just pick more or less on a few stats and lock in your lineup. I could even make future picks on Alabama winning the national title. What's real fun is that I can not only play it in Alabama, but also in most other states like Texas and Florida. Perfect for when we go on the road to watch the Crimson Tide beat the hell out of their conference rivals.
What about California? I've always wanted to go to the...
Oh! Cletus, you stupid sack of shrimp. Why you ever want to go there? It's expensive, crowded, and they sure as hell don't play good football. But yes, Cletus, you can even play in California.
Oh, wow, that's great, Billy. But my head kind of hurts now. Do you know how to make me feel better?
Sure do, Cletus. When new users bet $5, they get $50 in lineups immediately when you use code HMA.
Use the link in the description down below this video to sign up today. And thank you to Prize Picks for sponsoring this video. And always remember to gamble responsibly.
Billy, I logged into Prize Picks, but I lost all my money.
Oh, hell, Cletus. I knew I shouldn't have trusted you to win anything. Let me see that. Wait a damn minute, Cletus! That was my account you used! You just lost me all my damn money!
Sorry, Billy. I didn't see.
Come back here, Cletus! I'm gonna mount your head on the wall! Who do you think you are? Brendan Sarsby!
We now join our regularly scheduled programming already in progress.
Like I mentioned already, Barry Switzer had an incredibly successful career with Oklahoma. A career that up until 1988, you could call nearly flawless. Nearly. As it turns out, Coach Switzer wasn't always a saint in the Church of Oklahoma football. Back in 1984, he had gotten into a wee bit of trouble via a lawsuit from the SEC. Wait, no, not that SEC. This SEC!
FBI, open
Yep, he done went and pissed off the feds, as he got charges for insider trading. The story goes that in 1981, Barry had overheard some prominent businessman having an in-depth business conversation with his wife about liquidating his company. Barry was just absent-mindedly watching his son at the track meet and just happened to overhear the conversation. Yeah, apparently random track meets in the middle of nowhere were a pretty good place for scummy CEOs to talk business in the 1980s, in the same way that a fucking Coldplay concert is apparently a cheater's trap. Allegedly, Switzer then took this invaluable information he overheard, applied it to his stock portfolio, and told several of his friends this information as well, so they could all make a little bit of money, which they did to the tune of $97,000, which is equivalent to roughly $375,000 today. The government tried to get him thrown in jail for this, however the judge ruled in favor of Coach Switzer since the prosecution couldn't prove that listening into a conversation in public was a crime. He was cleared of all charges, and honestly this could have just been a blip on the legendary career of Barry Switzer. But in reality, it was hardly the first time Barry had to deal with the law while coaching at Oklahoma. On the field, the Sooners were the cream of the crop in college football. Off of it, however, the program had become a drug-infested, steroid-abusing hellhole. Don't just take my word for it, though. Take it from one of the greatest linebackers in the history of college football, as well as one of the most polarizing. Brian Bosworth, a.k.a. The Boz. The only two-time Butkus Award winner in college football history, not only helped Oklahoma win a national title in 1985, but also helped himself to his own serving of controversy over his collegiate career. And I'm not talking about the crazy hair either. He was a vocal critic of the NCAA back in the day, mainly taking shots at them for profiting from the players while those same players were broke as shit and starving. His biggest protest came at the 1987 Orange Bowl. Boz was not allowed to play in it as he had just been busted for steroid use and was suspended prior to the game, but he was still allowed on the sidelines to support his team. Knowing he was on his way to the NFL anyways, Boz decided to go out with a bang, riding on a t-shirt he was wearing on the sideline, NCAA, National Communists Against Athletes. While he was certainly a loudmouth, he also knew how to drop bombs with the stroke of a pen. Yes, as crazy as it sounds, the Boz was indeed smart enough to read and write, and did so in his 1988 autobiography, in which he would detail the complete chaos that was going on behind the scenes at Oklahoma. He revealed that star athletes like him were basically untouchable in Norman. Anytime a player got in trouble off the field, Coach Switzer would simply look the other way or work with the police to sweep any misdemeanor charges under the rug. Boz also came clean about himself, saying that despite his protests making it look like he was struggling with the rest of his fellow student athletes, he was more like the boy crying poor while holding 2 loaves of bread under his arms. The Boz was very well off during his time in Norman, living in a very nice condo while owning both a Jeep and a Corvette that he didn't have to fucking pay for. The craziest shit he said, though, was the things that his teammates were doing. According to his book, a large chunk of the Sooners, including himself, were injecting so many steroids it would make the Russian Olympics team shit bricks. He would also claim that the Sooners were literally freebasing cocaine on game days just before taking the damn field. He also told a nice family-friendly tale about Oklahoma wide receiver Buster Rhymes.
Let's go!
No, not Busta Rhymes, not the singer. I know, I had to double check that too. Singer Busta Rhymes actually took his stage name from the Oklahoma football player. Cool fact, right? Anyways, football player Buster Rhymes was walking down campus one cold snowy night, minding his own business, when he was hit with a snowball by some of his teammates having a snowball fight. How does he respond to this snowball being thrown at him? Did he join in on the merriment and compete in one of the greatest snowball fights in the history of the University of Oklahoma? Well, not exactly. He instead walked back to his dorm room, calmly walked out onto his balcony, and proceeded to pull out his goddamn Uzi gun and fire 150 fucking rounds above their heads. Boz probably embellished this story a little bit, and it's more than likely Rhymes just showed off his damn Uzi to everyone and made threats. But either way, it was clear that chaos wasn't the exception at Oklahoma, but the rule. Thanks to Boz's little book, the NCAA immediately began to investigate Oklahoma. In the process, they would verify that most of what he told in his book was fact, and ended up whacking Oklahoma with 20 violations. Of the 20 violations, Barry Switzer was directly implicated in 4 of them. He had apparently used his corporate checking account to send money to assistant coaches and recruiters, supposedly to bribe players into coming to Oklahoma. At the end of the 1988 regular season, the NCAA put Oklahoma on a 3-year probation, which included a severe scholarship reduction, a 2-year bowl ban, as well as a TV blackout in 1989. Now, normally for most teams, this is where the bullshit ended. However, as I'm sure you have figured out by now, late 1980s Oklahoma was not most teams. In fact, a few nights before the Sooners would take on the Clemson Tigers in the 1989 Citrus Bowl, which, again, would be Oklahoma's last bowl game for the next 2 years at least, OU players took out all their frustrations on the hotel they stayed in by vandalizing a wall mural and trashing multiple hotel rooms. At the same time that the players were destroying hotel property, a group of assistant coaches gathered in the Lake Nona Golf Club bar to drink and blow off steam. They of course all got pissed drunk, racked up a $475 bar tab worth over $1,300 in 2026 money, and started a massive bar fight, resulting in expensive chairs and tables being destroyed.
Can I hit this guy? Kill them all!
Naturally, Oklahoma, having let out all their anger on the local businesses and the frankly terrified population of Orlando, Florida, had no steam left for the game and lost to Clemson 13-6 on New Year's Day. You think that was the end? Nope, it somehow got even worse. After the Sooners came back from making an ass of themselves in Florida, they would proceed to continue to make an ass of themselves at home. On January 13th, cornerback Jerry Parks and lineman Zach Peters got into an argument. However, instead of resolving it with the usual fist fight, Parks decided that this shit needed to go to another level by pulling out his pistol and shooting Peters in the chest. What the fuck? Miraculously, Peters would survive, mainly because he was shot with a .22 caliber pistol and not a goddamn Uzi. Thank God Buster Rhymes was nowhere to be seen that night. Then, the very next week, allegations of gang rape came out against 3 Oklahoma players. Look, no jokes to be made here. 2 of those assholes were later found guilty and thrown in prison to rot like the scumbags that they are. The cherry on top of this winter from hell, though, was star quarterback Charles Thompson getting arrested in mid-February for, of all the fucking things, selling cocaine to an undercover FBI agent. If this were to happen today, Coach Switzer would have obviously been fired 10 times over by this point. But remember, this was 1980s Oklahoma. Despite all of this crazy shit, Switzer somehow remained as coach. Mainly because despite the national media hounding OU each day about Switzer's future, thousands of Oklahoma Sooner fans were mailing the university president begging him to not fire him. Sure, the program is an NCAA violation hell, and the culture involves drugs, sexual assault, destruction of property, recklessly shooting guns on campus, and looks past assistant coaches beating the shit out of people in random bars, but this is the king of Oklahoma, goddammit! Switzer could have gotten away with murder if he shot a fucker point blank in the middle of OKC. It was no secret how much he hated the reporters either. Hell, he felt like the cocaine charges against his star quarterback were a ruse set up by the media to finally bring him down. He would spin these confrontations to the fans as the newspapers actively trying to ruin him, and the fans bought the story hook, line, and sinker because, again, it's Barry goddamn Switzer, the king of Oklahoma. The thing is, the people of Oklahoma don't actually run the University of Oklahoma. The interim president of Oklahoma, David Swank, was the poor fucker running it at that time. Now, Swank was already having a hell of a time trying to keep the university afloat. Partially got the job because the last guy resigned due in part to the NCAA investigation, and therefore, he was not exactly buddy-buddy with Barry. In March of 1989, after the cocaine quarterback incident, he issued a public ultimatum to Coach Switzer. He would say in summation, "Clean this shit up, or I will clean out your fucking desk." Now, Swank was not naive. He wasn't going to be able to fire Barry no matter how much he probably wanted to. I mean, legally, of course he could. He had the power to do so, but as I think I've made clear with the fan loyalty to Coach Switzer at this time, the angry mob burning down campus in response to Switzer being fired is something that he really wanted to avoid if at all possible. The only way Barry was going to leave Oklahoma in peace was on his own volition, point blank. If Swank wanted him out, he would need to back Barry into a corner and make him resign. But if these scandals leading up to the ultimatum were not enough, then what the hell would do it? Well, as it turns out, Barry Switzer himself had already nailed the coffin shut on his Oklahoma career. Swank brought Coach Switzer into his office for a secret meeting. It was here that Swank informed Switzer that they had received reports of misconduct committed by Barry. Specifically, allegations of tampering with the university drug program in order to keep his players from popping a positive for drugs and steroids, as well as allegations that back in 1983, he had been in a Las Vegas hotel room where cocaine was definitely used. The coup de grace, though, was that Coach Switzer illegally bet on college football games during his time in Vegas, including games featuring his own goddamn team. None of this was public information at the time, and the university obviously wanted to keep it that way to avoid even more scandal. But they told Coach Switzer if he did not submit to a polygraph test and pass it, of course, they would have no choice but to allow these allegations to go public. This is because some of these allegations were coming from a U.S. federal investigation that was about to wrap up on the fucking team. So it was gonna come out sooner or later. Barry tried to deny it first, but when they brought up the money wire transfers that were made for the gambling and explained to him that he was virtually fucked, innocent or not, he agreed to resign.
I received a great football program 16 years ago. I'm passing on a great football program. I urge you to support the university more than ever in keeping it the winningest program in college football.
The fallout of the scandals in Oklahoma sent the Sooners to a place they haven't been since the 1960s, and even before then, World War II, the land of mediocrity. Assistant coach Gary Gibbs was promoted to replace Switzer, the poor bastard, and he ended up being nothing more than a janitor pretending to coach a football team. He tried his best and won a couple small bowl games in 1992 and 1993 after the bowl ban was lifted, but in the end, he was more effective at cleaning up the program rather than winning games. And even then, it was a major struggle to clean that place up early on. Yeah, Switzer was gone, but he had to cycle through a fuck ton of players that were corrupted under the old regime. In 1989, he was forced to suspend 4 players for the entire season after they were pulled over by police and found to have possession of stolen auto parts, as well as alcohol. By the way, none of them were over 21. The good news is that the suspended players were mostly bench warmers, so it wasn't like we lost production here. The bad news, though, was that starting running back Ike Lewis was also in the fucking car. Gibbs then had to suspend Lewis again a year later for DUI. Add to that a knife being found on him as well, and he was totally fucked. This time, Gibbs showed no mercy, and he was thrown off the team entirely. After this, however, there were very few incidents I could find of Oklahoma players getting into trouble, so in terms of cleaning up the program, Gibbs did his job and did it well. The problem now is, they didn't win enough. I know 44, 23-2 might sound alright, but it's the details you need to look at here, as Gibbs' record against rivals Nebraska, Colorado, and Texas was 2-15-1. On the one hand, yeah, this was expected. NCAA whacked Oklahoma pretty hard, and the rebuild was going to take years to complete. However, when a fan base is used to being in the national title conversation every year for the better part of 3 or 4 decades, it is not surprising that they became a bit entitled and expected a lot more. As a Buckeye fan, I sadly know a thing or two about that. In the eyes of Sooner Nation, this was nowhere near good enough, and Gibbs was entirely to blame, even though he was not able to field a full scholarship roster until 1994 due to the lingering sanctions. Speaking of that year, he did come out and say going into 1994 that this was going to be Oklahoma's best team since 1987. Was it?
Flawless victory.
Bring out your dead!
Boo! You stink! The bullshit is real! Suck my dick!
In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti.
Nope, not even close. He was forced to resign before the end of the season, allegedly without telling players or staff before he told the press. Way to go, bud! The message was clear from the university. The program had been cleaned up, and now they need to start winning championships again. The only way that will happen is if the Sooners hire someone with a championship pedigree. Someone that will not only bring in the players that believe in the university, but give the fans actual hope for the first time in years. The Sooners would end up landing one of the best to ever do it, Howard Schnellenberger.
The bitch from the bad movies! Oh shit! Everybody panic!
I won't repeat myself. If you don't know how legendary this fucker is, go check out my Lane Kiffin video where I give a brief history of him. Fresh off of leading Louisville to never-before-seen heights, he would proclaim upon his arrival in Norman, quote, "They'll write books and make movies about my time here." Well, good news, Howard. This video is about as long as a feature film, so that prediction you made kinda came true. The problem is that your segment in this film is hilariously short. Let's watch the train wreck bit by bit, shall we? Howard started off the right way by pissing off all the players after they got blown out in the 1994 Copper Bowl against BYU, saying they were all unmotivated, unorganized, out of shape, and were a disgrace to the rich tradition of Oklahoma. Great job getting the players to like you, Howard. Honestly, how can Oklahoma have a bright future if they're still looking like the past? Time to update to a style that reflects the new offense being installed. Hang on. Where have I seen this before? Howard really likes stripes, I guess, huh? I'm sure the fans will love it. Hey, look! I was born this month! Fans hated the change, eh? Alright, you know what fixes that? A statewide tour to get people excited for the upcoming season. Yes, Howard truly was an adopted son of Oklahoma. What do you mean offensive coordinator Gary Nord called the citizens of Oklahoma bigger hicks than the ones in Kentucky? That would just be silly. Okay, so the fans still aren't convinced, but this next move really ought to do it. Howard is going to open summer camp practices to the public. That is sure to get the people fired up, all right. They just can't bring any water or chairs because his players couldn't do that either. Wait a damn minute. Howard, have you ever been to Oklahoma in the fucking summer? Oh, hell. In case you didn't figure it out yet, Howard treated his practices at this time like he was trying to recreate the goddamn Junction Boys of Texas A&M, all the way down to limiting water breaks. Eventually it got so bad 2 players collapsed with one nearly dying of heat stroke. At first he blew it off, saying that football players had been puking and passing out for over 100 years. But current Oklahoma President David Boren had seen enough and demanded more water breaks for the team. Howard didn't really seem to care what the president was saying, and I'm pretty sure Howard didn't notice the lack of water breaks anyways, since he was drinking more bourbon than water at this point in time. You can take the man out of Louisville, but you can't take the Louisville out of the man. Anyways, after all this nonsense during the offseason, it's safe to say that Oklahoma bounced back in the first season, and that Howard Schnellenberger became a legend. I'm just kidding, of course, everything was a total disaster. How big of a disaster, you ask? Well, let's see here. First, it started off fine with a 3-game winning streak against San Diego State, SMU, and North freaking Texas. No shit they won all 3. Pretty sure 95% of FBS could have done that at that point in time. Then they played Colorado.
Pass over the middle. It is caught. Savoy, touchdown, Colorado. Kessler sets to throw in the end zone. Got him for the touchdown. Ray Carew at the 40. Play action. Kessler over the middle. Got a man wide open. They blew a coverage, and it's Carew. And remember, he can fly. Nobody's going to catch him. Touchdown, Colorado. Slings it out. That's Henry. And Henry breaks the tackle and is on his way. He will score. And Oklahoma pays. To the 45-yard line.
He said, guys, go for it. They had a big snowball fight. More in a moment.
Pass on top. He's got Savoy in the end zone. Touchdown, Colorado.
Holy, look at all this damage.
But it was all good. They beat Iowa State and immediately tied Texas.
Tie game!
What the hell? This is outrageous. Oh, I've never been so proud of them.
They're both losers! Losers!
Look, at least it wasn't a loss, right? They then rebounded against Kansas. Fucking Jayhawks. Really? Well, you did beat Mizzou the next week. It's not like you have any more good opponents.
Sets up, has time, throws over the middle, intercepted by Chris Canning. Canning's at the 30, Canning's at the 20, 15, 10, 5, touchdown. Chris Canning, an interception return for a touchdown.
Yeah, the Bill Snyder Wildcats are a bitch, eh, Howard? But hey, if you beat the Pokies, it's all good, man. Oklahoma hasn't lost to them in over 20 years. There's no way you're gonna...
What the fuck is that?
Okay, it can't possibly get worse than that, right? What do you mean the finale is against Nebraska?
It's at the Nebraska 46-yard line, and there it is.
Fumble! And coming out is Phelan. They will not catch him. Touchdown, Cornhuskers.
It's safe to say that 1995 Oklahoma was legendary for Howard. A legendary failure. The biggest blunder in his otherwise Hall of Fame career. How ironic is it that he chastised the 1994 team at the Copper Bowl when his 1995 squad didn't even go fucking bowling? But hey, at least your squad was in fucking shape, right, Howard? Look, the problem Schnellenberger had here was that this was not a Miami or a Louisville where he needed to build a team from virtually nothing. Oklahoma actually had some decent recruiting classes the last couple of years of Gibbs' tenure, and all of the modern amenities in place to succeed with. Not to mention, the program had won multiple national titles prior to his arrival. He had all the tools and personnel in place to build another dynasty of a football program, and instead, he built an outhouse without a hole to take a shit in. 11 months after his arrival, and with pressure coming from the president and the board, Howard would resign and proceed to squarely put the blame on how absolutely broken Oklahoma was as a football program. He would fuck off the Florida Atlantic, and the rest is history from there. Again, go check out the Kiffin video for more. You cannot make me go back and relive that shit a second time.
And Howard will attempt to regroup the Sooners and come back next year.
Yeah, about that.
Salutations, young Tommy. How you doing today?
Oklahoma decided to try a former nose guard and assistant coach under Barry Switzer and John Blake as their next head coach. There were some things to like about him. For starters, he was the first black head coach of any sports program in university history. Love that. He most recently spent the early 90s with the Dallas Cowboys as a defensive line coach, winning conference titles and Super Bowls along the way. Also pretty great. And then he quit the team during the playoffs to join Oklahoma after accusing Troy Aikman of being racist. Michael Irvin, Emmitt Smith, and Deion Sanders went on to loudly call out his bullshit. Would you be surprised if I told you they went on to have 3 straight losing seasons, which included their first and second 8-loss seasons in program history, and that his ass was ran out of town by 1998? Oh, you're not? Oh, good. You just saved us a lot of time. Where are we at in the videos anyway? Oh, for fuck's sake! Safe to say the Sooners have been drowning in an Olympic swimming pool full of bad decisions for over a decade at this point. Coming off a 3rd straight losing season, a change was needed and fast as Y2K approached. Athletic Director Joe Castellone was determined to get this next hire right and stop the fucking bleeding, going as far to personally vet each individual candidate for the job. The nationwide search would come to a head via a tug of war with, of all teams, Iowa, who was desperately trying to get the hire that Oklahoma picked as their top target. And, I mean, who could blame him? This guy was the current defensive coordinator of the Florida Gators and just helped them turn a defense that was bleeding points against their opponents into a national champion in 1996 for the first time in program history. He's a guy who also helped build Kansas State under the guidance of Bill Snyder, turning the Wildcats from a perennial loser into a regional powerhouse. He is a man who didn't take kindly to excuses, was a straight shooter, and whose character was built by a strong football coaching family. That man was Bob Stoops. Oklahoma wanted him badly, but like I said, Iowa was in the running to land him too. Not just because he was a good coach and we're not in hell like Oklahoma, but because he was an Iowa graduate, having played for them back in the early 1980s. They were the most likely team to land him, and they damn near did too. While the Iowa Hawkeyes were still saying farewell to retiring head coach Hayden Fry, Oklahoma was already moving fast by interviewing and offering Stoops a $700,000 contract immediately. Stoops, however, was a man of his word and had already promised the Iowa athletic director Bob Bowlesby one meeting before making any decision on the offer from the Sooners. The two men would meet in Atlanta, and Stoops was believed to be waiting for Bowlesby to offer him the job, which he was going to probably accept. Just one little tiny problem. Bowlesby never offered him the job at the fucking meeting. Why? He still had one more candidate he needed to speak with and wanted to be a man of his word. Stoops wanted to wait a little longer, but asked a mentor of his, Wisconsin head coach Barry Alvarez, what he should do. Without hesitation, Alvarez told Stoops, "Don't wait another second. Oklahoma is the better job. Take that job right now." Stoops would then promptly accept the Oklahoma job. I mean, it worked out in the end for Iowa when they hired, holy shit, Kirk Ferentz? Good God, he's been there that long? No wonder Iowa hates Wisconsin. Damn it, Badgers. Anyways, the salt Iowa fans had with Oklahoma after fumbling Stoops at the 1-yard line was enough to plow roads all winter for the next few years. As while Kirk Ferentz would go on to a fine enough career at Iowa, Bob Stoops, in just 2 short seasons, took the Sooners from the doormat of the Plains and turned them back into a monster. After a 7-5 campaign in 1999, the 2000 Sooners unleashed over a decade of built-up frustration and anger on every living soul in sight. This season saw a 63-point mauling of the Texas Longhorns in the Cotton Bowl, a gut-check win over number 2 Kansas State in the regular season, win over number 1 Nebraska, and finally another war with Kansas State that won them their first Big 12 Conference championship. 12-0, number 1 in the nation, quarterback Josh Heupel was a runner-up for the Heisman Trophy, Stoops was Coach of the Year, and Oklahoma had earned their way to the BCS National Championship game against the Seminoles of Florida State.
ABC Sports proudly presents exclusive coverage of the National Championship game. It's the grand finale of the Bowl Championship Series.
This was an ugly-ass game in Miami against Florida State, as the Seminole offense, led by the actual Heisman Trophy winner Chris Weinke, couldn't get anything going on offense. Meanwhile, Oklahoma could only score a touchdown thanks to a fumble by Weinke inside the Seminoles' own red zone. which set up a touchdown 2 plays later. The only points scored by Florida State, in fact, were not even points they earned. Oklahoma fucked up the snap on a punt late in the 4th quarter. But rather than try to pick it up and run down the field like a dumbass, the punter ran it into his own end zone to prevent Florida State from getting the ball deep in OU territory, keeping it a 2-score game. Now, that is some high IQ shit right there. Regardless of how pretty or ugly a national title win is, Oklahoma would indeed be crowned national champions after going 13-0 and standing atop the mountain once more. With a young head coach ready to lead the way for many years to come, the Sooners are poised to dominate college football and start a brand new Oklahoma dynasty. Right?